Hey tenor drummers, we're going to take a quick break from DCI licks and instead do a few videos on digitizing the tenor drums. The first thing we need to do is make some drum triggers. Let's go ahead and take a look. My first attempt at digitizing the tenor drums was way back right after I aged out from the Cavaliers. My drumline friends were in a rock band and they decided to let me join as an auxiliary percussionist slash keyboardist slash sound effects noise maker, and we wanted to incorporate some drumline stuff. So I had tenor drums on stage and we quickly realized that compared to guitar amplifiers and a huge PA system, you could not hear the tenor drums at all. So we needed some way to amplify the sound. Now in hindsight, we could have easily just had the sound tech put some mics around the drums and the problem would have been solved. Instead, I wanted to go a much more complicated route and I got triggers for the tenor drums. I'd routed the triggers to a drum module, which then went to the PA, and it kind of worked. The main issue was there was a ton of latency. I would hit the drum and like a half second later you would hear it come through the PA, and that just didn't work out very well, as you can imagine. So then I thought if I had a bunch of rolling drum pads like this routed through the drum module, it would be better. And it actually wasn't at all. It was the same exact issues. But these were a little bit easier to transport, so I ended up going with the electronic drum pads. But now I want to give it another shot, and this time I'm going to ditch the drum module and instead go straight into Logic. We'll record some audio files with the drum triggers and then convert those to MIDI and then play around with the sounds. One problem I have though is I only have 4 drum triggers and I have, you guessed it, 6 drums. So I need 2 more drum triggers, and that's what we're going to do in this video. Now of course I could have just went out and bought some drum triggers, but that's no fun. Instead, I found a pack of 20 piezo discs on eBay for like $7 or $8, and you can see they already have 2 wires coming from them. They have a positive and a negative. We're gonna sacrifice a guitar cable, cut it in half, and connect these wires to the guitar cable, and we will have a drum trigger. But before we make our triggers, please take a second, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. It really helps me out with those YouTube algorithms. I really appreciate it. Oh, come on, hit the like button. Yep, hit it, and go. All right, let's make some triggers. So let's go ahead and get started here. First, I'm going to cut off this end of the guitar cable. And then we have to remove the outer layer. And do that with this knife here. Of course, be careful. You don't want to cut yourself. And in general, you want to always solder in a well-ventilated area. I got my window open here. Hopefully we don't get too much noise. So you can see all this braided wire. That is the ground, or the negative. So we'll kind of group all that stuff together and we'll connect that to the black wire on the piezo disc. So I'm gonna just group all this together, and then we got to remove this plastic here. For that, I'm going to use this guy. I think about 18 gauge or so should work. It's better to go to a larger hole first and then work your way down. You don't want to clip it off if you go too small. I think this should be about good. Clip that down, kind of spin it a little bit, and then we should be able to pull it off. And there we go. Let's do a tiny bit more. We can always clip off any extra we don't need. Twist it up. And now we're gonna tin these, which means you just put a little bit of solder on the ends of it, and then that'll make it very easy to connect it to these wires when we're ready for that. All right, so I'm gonna stick this on my helping hand here. Hello. And I've had coffee this morning, but I haven't eaten anything, so my hands might be a little shaky. Let's see. Yeah, see that smoke in there? Put a little bit of solder on there. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna put the soldering iron on one end and then the solder itself on the other. The soldering iron will heat up these little strands and then pull the solder through. So let's try it. So I'm gonna put this underneath it right here, give it a second to heat up, and then I'll just feed some solder in there. And let's see. Yeah, there we go. You can see the strands turning silver. Looks pretty good. The ground is a little bit thicker. There's more wire, so it might take a little bit longer to heat up. Here, let it heat up. There we go, getting a little bit. All right, what you don't want to do is touch this with your finger. It's very hot, again 350 degrees. I think you know what would happen if you touch that with your hand. So now we are going to do the same thing with these little wires, but you can see these are super tiny. So we're gonna use our little tool here to strip off some of the coating off these guys. Now I think they're even too small for this hole. So what you can do is kind of come at it at an angle and you should be able to get some off. So I'm gonna kind of see, I'm kind of bending this back. You don't want to bend it too much because it's a little wire, you don't want to ruin it. But let's see. Yeah, there we go. So the black again is the ground, red is the positive. Get it about there and pull. And there we go. Now we will tin these. Since the wires are so much smaller, they should heat up pretty quickly. So you can put some solder on your soldering iron, clean off the extra. Oh, my hands are shaking. Note to self, don't drink a bunch of coffee right before you make a video focusing on your hands. Okay, got the positive, now let's do the negative. Go. All right. So now we have all of our wires tinned. So now what I'm gonna do is twist these together. We'll start with the positives. I'm gonna try to bend this little wire around. I'll kind of lock it in place. Give that a second to cool down. And now we can do the negatives. Maybe a little bit more wire would have been better. And actually, I'm gonna have my helping hand pinch this right where I need it. All right, so I have this wrapped around. Let's go ahead and give this a shot. Again, this has a lot more wire, so it's gonna take a little longer to heat up. I think that's not the prettiest, but the ground, it'll probably be fine. Give that a second to cool off, and we're pretty much done. We just have to tape it up and we'll be good to go. First, I'm gonna use electrical tape, and then I'll use some duct tape to wrap it all together. Because of course what you don't want is the positive to touch the negative. You want each of these to be separate. Have the wires go the direction you want so we don't have to bend the wires too much after the fact. Want those wires to be happy. And now, grab some duct tape, some white duct tape here, which will blend in nicely with my drum heads. And we'll go ahead and wrap this all up to make it nice and secure. Alright. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but I think it will get the job done. So you can see the piezo disc already had wires connected to it. The red goes to this middle part, so that's the positive. The black goes to this outer part, that is the ground. And then on the other end of this guitar cable, we have a plug. So I'll be able to plug this into the interface, put this on the drum, and we should be good to go. But before we do that, let's just plug this into the guitar amp and make sure it works. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and plug the guitar cable into my pedal board actually. Normally I would just plug it right in, but we might turn some of these pedals on to see how it sounds. And then I'm going to take this guy and tape it onto the drum head. I'm going to use good old drum 1 here. Put it up top. Now these piezo discs are very sensitive, so go easy on the gain. I'm getting a little bit of hum from the guitar amp, but I think that's fine because we're not using this as a mic, we're just using it as a trigger. So you can hear it, and then let's try go ahead and play. Yeah, works pretty well. Go ahead and give it a little bit up. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. Try this one. Okay. Probably shouldn't have everything turned up all the way. Guitar pedals were not working.